Welcome everybody. Thank you for coming, joining me today. I apologize for the late start. We have a few technical issues, but I would like to get started. So today I'll be talking about creating a more accessible syllabus in our classes. And I'm going to go ahead and move to the first slide. Feel free at any time, if you have questions, to type them in the chat. You can also use the raise hand function. And this is going to be kind of a working session, so I hope that everybody has a file, a syllabus file that you can kind of have on your device. And I encourage multitasking. So definitely encourage everyone to do that. Let me see. Oh, I just realized my video wasn't on. I apologize. There it is. Okay, so let's get started. For the agenda today, I'm going to be just kind of giving you an overview of what inspired me to be doing this workshop, as well as we'll look at what accessibility is. And I'd like to focus today on 3 accessible elements that we can all kind of incorporate in our syllabi: headings, tables, and links. Then I'd like you to have a chance to practice and also ask questions and even share some best practices that you might have. And then we'll wrap up and I will provide everybody with a list of resources. Before we get started, does anybody have any initial questions? Okay. So I do have a question for all of you, and if anyone would like to share, once again, you can either raise your hand or type in the chat. What brought you to this workshop today? Any goals that you might have for your syllabi, for working on your syllabus. If anybody would care to share anything in terms of what brought you here today. Okay, I see a few people responding. The title: helping guide students through course expectations, utilizing the main document in every course, the syllabus. Absolutely, that's a great reason. Thank you. And the title, that's great. Anyone else? Okay. Well, I think all of us probably have a lot of feelings and thoughts when we hear the word, we think about the syllabus, right, in our courses. And I do want to kind of talk about that a little bit, but before I do that, I want to share what my personal inspiration is for being interested in focusing on accessibility. And to start out, when I was in graduate school, I had a classmate who was blind, and she actually used a screen reader to access content in the course that I was with her in. And I kind of saw her experience of using assistive technology and also all of the barriers that she encountered while trying to access content. And I'm pretty sure that she spent probably double the amount of time that I spent on that particular course. And that time was mostly spent trying to access the content. So trying to get, the course documents, the readings, the articles, everything that she needed just to learn in the course. And so that experience kind of got me to thinking about it. And although it's many years later and we have so much more technology now, there are still barriers for our students, to really be able to access everything they need to access in order to learn well. And the second source of inspiration was a conference that I attended last year, and it was on accessibility through Maryland Online. And they focused on various aspects of accessibility as far as video captioning, document accessibility, PDFs, everything we present in our courses. So that was very helpful to me. And the third was a course I took through edX and Cornell University on teaching and learning in the diverse classroom. So that course was also helpful in just inclusivity, understanding how to make my courses more inclusive for all learners to benefit. I want to start by defining accessibility. I think we hear the word a lot. Many of us probably know what it is, what it means, but I really like this definition. This is by Alistair Duggan. He actually is, he's in the UK. He's the head of the UK's governmental digital service. And he said, when I talk about accessibility, I'm using it to mean that people are not excluded from using something on the basis of experiencing a disability. Accessibility means that people can do what they need to do in a similar amount of time and effort as someone that doesn't have a disability. It means that people are empowered, they can be independent, and they won't be frustrated by something that is poorly designed or implemented. So I really like that definition. I think it kind of captures, when I think of accessibility, what that means to me and what I think that means to a lot of our students. Why should we design for it, especially in our syllabus? Well, for starters, everyone can benefit from accessible content. Even if someone does not have a disability, when a document is easily readable, easy to access, easy to navigate, it makes it easier to learn. So I think everybody can benefit from this. Also, I think it can increase student engagement. And it definitely helps create a more inclusive environment. It doesn't keep people out. It allows everyone to feel like they belong and to feel part of the learning environment. And I think one thing that's important here is if it's done at the beginning of a course, if we plan ahead and we make our content accessible initially, then later on, we won't run into as many issues with someone saying, you know what, this document, I can't access it, it's not working, broken links. Then later on, you're having to kind of scramble to create content. But if we have it at the outset of our course, it's part of our course planning, then I think it reduces the number of issues that tend to crop up later on. I'll recommend also, if you're kind of interested in looking at the nuts and bolts of accessibility, the guidelines, you can take a look at the Web Content Accessibility Guidelines. And there it kind of breaks down everything in terms of how to make, how to design a course for accessibility. Okay, gonna move on. And feel free once again, if anybody has questions, type them in the chat, or you can just raise your hand. So when I was thinking about this workshop, kind of just deciding how to approach it, I really started thinking about my syllabus and looking at my syllabus and looking at some of the components of my syllabus. And I know that it can be a source of frustration to students, but also to faculty. I know that, when we hear the word syllabus, we think of the word syllabus. When we think of our syllabus, we might think frustration, or my students don't read it, right? We've all kind of maybe had that experience. And I'll be honest, I actually feel like sometimes the syllabus is, and this may sound extreme, but could be also used kind of as a weapon, something that we later will say, well, you needed to read the syllabus. Well, why didn't you read the syllabus, right? And I don't think it should be. I think it's a document that instead of being like a fence, could be more like an open gate. And in my experience, after several semesters, I realized each semester, as I added more requirements, more policy guidelines, I was kind of building this fence a few inches higher each semester. And my students had to climb a little bit higher to get over it into my class. And so I really wanted to think of the syllabus as a way to invite students in. It's the first means of engagement they encounter in our classes. It's the first impression they get of us, right? Of our course of learning. And I know the complaint, I know it well. Well, why didn't you read the syllabus, right? But then I had to think about myself and reflect on my practices and think, well, could I have made it more readable? Maybe they didn't read it because it really wasn't readable. You know, would I have read it if I was given a 10-page document with a lot of text that wasn't easy to navigate? So I had to start kind of asking those questions of myself and the way that I develop my syllabus and present it. And then I began to work on it. And it's definitely a work in progress. I never feel like, oh, I'm completely done, it's perfect, you know, I'm good to go. So it's definitely something I want us to kind of think about in terms of how can I make it more accessible to more learners? How can I make it something that's positive and welcoming as a first impression of my course? And there's a lot we could do in the syllabus in terms of language and different policy statements, but today I just want to focus on 3 tools that we can all implement if we haven't done so already in our syllabi. And I'm looking at the chat just to kind of make sure I'm not missing anything. Give me a second. Yeah, I know what you mean. I know some of you are commenting on that. Yeah, I don't want it to be a weapon. I don't want it to be this negative thing. Well, we do have requirements, you know, we have to include in it. There are ways that we can make it easier for students to access and navigate. Thank you for your comments. So 3 accessible elements that I want to focus on today. And like I said, there are many more, but these are the 3 that I think are the most common that we tend to use in our syllabi. So I want to focus on those. The first one is headings. The second one is tables. And the third is links. So chances are many of you probably use one or all 3 of these, right, in your syllabi. And I've used them as well, and I'm going to be showing you a lot of before and after screenshots of my syllabus, so you can kind of see how I revised it. But that's what we'll be focusing on today. And the first one we're going to talk about is headings. Before I jump into that, I want to share with you one of my best friends, the accessibility checker. And I actually didn't use this much in the past, but after I attended these conferences and sort of got to know this tool, I use it now often for a lot of documents that I create. You can actually do this in Word. There's an accessibility checker in PowerPoint, and there's also one in Outlook. So you can, basically what it does is it checks your document to see how accessible it is for people that might be using assistive technology. So it's in the menu, and if you all are kind of already in Microsoft Word right now working on your syllabus, you'll see it at the top. And when you click on it, it will give you a list of any issues that sort of pop up in your document that may create issues for people who are using technology to read the document. So this is an example of the results that I received when I used this on my syllabus. I had created tables, and there weren't headers in my tables. I just sort of made them up on the fly. I had some merged cells in the tables. I had a lot of blanks. And if you're not familiar with screen readers, when they do read a lot of blanks, it says the word blank. So if I had 15 blanks because I was just tabbing over and not really creating an actual table, then that person using the screen reader was hearing a lot of unnecessary words as they were trying to access my document. I used text that was a different color that wasn't good contrast, so that popped up as well. After I worked on my syllabus for quite some time, I was able to run the accessibility checker and get this wonderful message saying, no accessibility issues found. And that's kind of what I was looking for. So it did take some time and sort of some work, but that should be a goal, I think, in a lot of the documents that we create in our courses. So feel free at any point, if you are working on your syllabus while I'm talking, if you run into any questions, you feel free to ask, and we can take a look at things. So that's the accessibility checker. And looking at headings. So many of us may already be doing this. And once again, if you're already doing a lot of these things, or using these tools, then that's great. And you can actually share some of your expertise with us during the time that we're going to have to share with one another. But one of the benefits of having headings in your document is that it provides structure. It provides structure to the document so that when someone is using a screen reader, they see that, oh, there's a heading there, that's a separate section. And that section is going to be different than the previous section. So headings help provide structure. They also make the syllabus easier to navigate. So when you have headings, it's not just long blocks of text, but it's broken up and it's easier for everyone to kind of navigate the document. Headings are easy to modify, and there are a lot of settings you can use to automatically kind of modify headings and apply those modifications to the entire document. And once again, they're accessible to those who are using assistive technology. The other nice thing about headings is that you can actually create a table of contents. So if you have a lengthy document, a long syllabus, I've actually seen some people, they put a table of contents on the first page so that if a student wants to access just a certain section of it, it's easy to do so because the headings have kind of automatically created that table of contents. And then if you are wanting to kind of move over to a PDF to make that document a PDF, then you have more of an ability to do so, to maintain that document structure if you use headings in your document. Any questions so far? I know I'm kind of going fast. I'll make sure we cover everything today. Questions or comments? Okay. So I want to give you a few tips for those who need them. Headings should start with the styles pane, okay? So the styles pane should be at the top of your screen when you are in Microsoft Word, and you'll notice all the different style options that you have. And I wanted to mention something for folks who might not be aware that when you use bold and italics in the font block, these tend to be ignored by screen readers. And so right here, where you see that blue circle sort of on the right of your screen, that's what I mean when I say the font block. So we have the bold, we have the italics, and we have the underlining. I actually wasn't aware of this before. I use bold a lot, and I use underlining, and I use italics in my syllabus. And unfortunately, it doesn't help create any type of structure in the document. And it's not really, like, screen readers just don't recognize it as different than normal text. So if you would like to emphasize something in your syllabus, use strong. So at the top of here, you'll see there's a style called strong. So rather than bold, you can actually use the styles pane to, maybe it's a word or a phrase, and you highlight it and you click on strong instead of using bold. Also, you can use emphasis, the style up here at the top, instead of italics if you want to stress something, component in your document, in your syllabus. So once again, these work much better to provide some structure and some more information than if you just chose bold and italics. Also, one thing to keep in mind is I've done this, and I'll admit it, and I'll show you my syllabus, underlining text. So unfortunately, when we do that, it tends to be interpreted by someone with low vision or a screen reader as links. So if someone sees that underlining, let's say they have lower vision, they might think it's a link. Or a screen reader tends to read those underlined words as links. So if you want to emphasize something, I would suggest not using underlining unless it is a link, but using, once again, the styles in the styles pane. Any questions about this? Okay, so I'm going to move on. I'm going to give you an example here of how someone did a heading style. So you'll notice at the top, we have heading 1, and then you'll see heading 2, heading 3, heading 4. There's lots of options for headings. Underlining, thank you, Deborah. Underlining should just, I believe that actually, I need to get back to Microsoft Word, but you should just be able to use the underlining feature. But if anyone has theirs in front of, has Microsoft Word up and you see an underlining style, feel free to let us know. But I'm pretty sure for that, it's fine. I actually, because I now just use it for links, you know, then I mostly just do that. It just automatically does it for a link. Yeah, that's a good question. So for headings, you'll notice they're in chronological order. So what I would suggest is when you are working with headings that you do the title of the document, which is heading 1, and then within that, just kind of go in order of the heading. So heading 1, and then your subheading should be heading 2, then heading 3, heading 4, and so on. So you don't want to skip. You don't want to go from heading 1 to then your subheading is heading 3. Okay, so try to go in order. It's just a lot easier, once again, for that screen reader to be able to navigate and understand and kind of provide that context. And one thing to keep in mind is in Microsoft Word, using title as a style actually doesn't get recognized if you convert the file to PDF. So you should use heading 1 for the document title, if that makes sense. So this is kind of, I just wanted to kind of show you, you know, try to keep it chronological. Once again, just easier to navigate, easier to understand the structure if somebody is using assistive technology. Okay, any questions? Anybody find a style for underlining? I will look that up, Deborah, because I'm curious. Okay, so I wanted to give you an example of the accessibility checker. Sorry, I'm going to jump back in here to the question. I believe it should be not just the most recent version of Word. Anybody knows that's a great question. I think I have Word 2016, and I think it works there. 2010, it should have it. I mean, it should basically, you know, be in most versions of Word, because I don't think this is something recent. I think it's, yeah, it's been a thing for a while. I'll try it out. We're getting some suggestions in the chat. Thanks, Lou. So this was my old syllabus, and as you can see, I mean, it's okay, right? I mean, I separated paragraphs. It's not just one long block of text, but you notice that my headings are actually faux headings. They're not real headings. They're just me putting bold text in. So with my new syllabus, I used headings, and it's much more organized. It's more uniform. I also got rid of bright blue text. I mean, it was okay. It just wasn't the most accessible, but it's much easier, I think, for students now to navigate through my syllabus because I have everything sort of under a heading. So you can kind of see the difference there. So that's kind of what I did in terms of headings. I mean, like I said, I'm kind of scratching the surface today. There's a lot more there that you all can explore. And I will be providing some links at the end if you want to look further. Okay, so the next thing I want to bring up is tables. Now tables, yeah, tables can be a little bit tricky sometimes. I think a lot of us maybe sometimes just kind of do our own thing when it comes to tables, our own designs. And I didn't always think about accessibility when I was creating tables, but it's very helpful when tables are done, you know, correctly. It's a lot easier for students to navigate. So one thing, a tip that I have is to use Microsoft Word's built-in functionality to create tables rather than just coming up with some other version. Also, keep them simple. The more complex the table, the less accessible it usually is. So the simpler you can kind of keep your tables, the easier it will be for students to navigate. And use tables to organize data, not to format information. So if you're really trying to explain something in a table, then you definitely want like a header. You don't want to just kind of put some terms in a table, but there's no real meaning. If somebody was just to look at that, there's no real explanation, there's no context. So it's really helpful if you use tables to actually organize data rather than just put something in boxes for the sake of putting something in boxes. Okay. So I wanted to go through the steps of creating a table, and many of you probably have done this before, but when you insert, you're going to choose the columns and the rows that you would like, and then select table header row. So the header row is kind of like what you're explaining in the table. Okay, and I'll show you some examples. It'll make more sense. So make sure that you do have checked a header row, and it's under design, if you can kind of see on the right toward the bottom of the screen. I wanted to show a short video to kind of give us a very, very brief overview of creating tables and checking for accessibility in our tables. So if you give me 1 second, I'm gonna pull that up. I'm hoping the sound works. Let's see. Let me know. Can you all hear that?
No.
No. Okay. 1 second. I think I need to. You know what? This will be. It's too complicated for me to. I think I have to stop sharing. Let me try. Actually, 1 second. I think I can do this. All right. Share. Yeah, I just need to share my sound. 1 second. Okay, here we go.
Include nested tables, split cell. Tables that include nested tables, split cells, or merged cells can trip up even the best screen reading programs. Here are a few ways to check the accessibility of your tables.
Laura, we're not seeing the video.
Through your table.
Okay, I apologize.
All right.
Let me see. So can you hear it?
We did hear it, but then we
Okay.
were back to your PowerPoint.
All right, here we go. I will just put the link out separate, and then that way. Here it is. Okay. Let's do it this way. Here we go. This should work. Is that better? Can you hear it? See it?
Yes. There we go.
Yay.
Nested tables, split cells, or merged cells can even the best screen reading programs. Here are a few ways to check the accessibility of your tables. First, try navigating all the way through your table using only the Tab key. If you can tab smoothly through the table, cell by cell and row by row, a screen reader should have no trouble with it. In English language tables, the Tab key should move from left to right, starting in the top left cell and ending in the bottom right. Next, consider the use of a designated header row for your table. Designated header rows make it easier for a screen reader to navigate your table, and some screen readers will call out the name of a row or column before reading the data. To designate a row as a header, select it, then right-click and select Table Properties. Select the Row tab and check Repeat as Header Row at the top of each page. Also, be sure Allow Row to break across pages is unchecked. While you've got the Table Properties window open, it's a good time to check your table's alt text. Select the Alt Text tab and make sure the alt text is clear, descriptive, and concise. Once your header row and alt text are ready, choose OK. A common stumbling block for accessible tables are split cells, where two cells occupy the space of a single cell. In this column, we've got a split cell that might cause problems for a screen reader. To merge these split cells into a single cell, we'll select them, right-click, and choose Merge Cells. For more about creating accessible documents, go to aka.ms/accessible.
Okay. Hold up. Let me stop sharing that. Okay, so I'm going to go back to my PowerPoint. Hopefully that just kind of gave you a quick way to check for accessibility in your tables that you have in your syllabus. Okay, so after you've done that, then what you want to do is make sure that you go to table properties. And one thing I've noticed on my own syllabus and other syllabi and other documents I've seen is if somebody has a table, tends to go to the next page and you're turning the page and you're looking and you're thinking, oh, wait, well, what is this table about? You know, where's the header? So that's why in the video, it kind of showed you that you want to make sure that you deselect allow row to break across pages and you select repeat as a header row at the top of each page. So that way, when your table, if your table does go to another page, the header will be there so the students can figure out, you know, it's easier to read and to navigate. It is more helpful if you can keep your rows on the same page. It's just more accessible to do it that way. So these screenshots here kind of show you where to go in Microsoft Word in order to make those selections. Any questions? Okay, I'll show you an example of what I did with my table and my syllabus. Oh, I did forget one step. Captions are helpful for tables. A lot of times we think, well, I have a header at my table, I don't really need a caption, right? Captions are helpful because they can end up going into that table of contents if you do have a table of contents for your document. Also, once again, it tells a screen reader what is in this table. So it'll first read that caption, and then the person will then understand what is in the table. So there are ways to do, there's a way to do that. You just go to insert caption after selecting, right-clicking on your table, and you can, in the label text box, you basically select table, because that's what it is. And let's say it's your grading scale. So for instance, my table was my grading scale. So that's what I labeled it as. That was my caption. So once I put that caption in, that caption goes before my table and it lets my students know what they're looking at. And I'll show you an example of what that looks like. So I'm kind of embarrassed, but this was my old syllabus. It's not really a table. I basically just kind of made a list, did some tabs, note for the best, and it went on to the next page. As you can see, it started on one page, went to the next. Confusing for a student. So with my new syllabus, I revised it. I put a caption in, I put headers for the table. Everything is sort of organized and it's much more accessible than it was. So that's kind of how I revised my syllabus in terms of tables. The last thing I want to talk about today, and I know I'm kind of moving quickly. Oh, I see some chats, hold on. The website was actually, I got it in Microsoft Word. Dion, are you talking about the video?
Yes.
Yes, so that actually, if you go to Microsoft Word and you just click on help, and you can type in tables, accessibility, and it kind of gives you some resources there.
Thanks.
Sure. So my last thing I want to mention is creating links in our syllabus and making them meaningful. Links can help everyone navigate content, not just people that may have disabilities or may have low vision or maybe using a technology. It's very helpful to have links because it can help students kind of get to the places they need to go a little bit faster. Links should definitely make sense out of context, and I'll explain what that means in a minute. And then finally, links should be concise and descriptive. And I'll show you some examples of that. So I have 4 tips. There are probably many more. The first one I have for creating links in your syllabus is make sure that the text is actually meaningful, okay? So rather than saying, click here for more information, you want to actually put a description as the link. A lot of people actually can't click here. If they can't use a mouse, if they have some type of a issue where they aren't able to use a mouse, click here is not helpful for them. So it's actually not very inclusive to use click here as a way to bring someone to a link. But giving them a description of where they're going can help that person with the screen reader be able to know what this link is, where it's taking me, okay? And the next one is don't display the actual URL as a link. And I will admit I've done this, but it's really hard for people who are using a screen reader because when the URL is read to them by this device, it reads everything. So I was sharing an article with my students on advice giving and relationships. So rather than giving them the entire URL, I just give them 2 words as the link. Because if I gave them the entire URL and one of them had to use a screen reader, the screen reader would basically read https://www.npr, you know what I mean? So that is tedious. It just will take them more time to access the content. So that's something to keep in mind as well. If you think your students will probably print the document out, you can include the URL after the link, but I would not hyperlink it. So for instance, my link is to our website, and after the link, I included the actual URL. Okay, if you think the students are going to print it out and they're going to need that link, need the actual URL later to access it, then you can do it that way. Use non-color indicators for hyperlink text. So for example, visit the Writing Center, it's underlined, rather than just the text in a different color. Sometimes we do create links and we just change the color so people know they're a link, but if somebody is colorblind or they have assistive technology, then they don't always know that that's a link, right? If they're using that screen reader, it may not know that that's a link. So underlining is really helpful when you are hyperlinking text. And let's see, I wanted to show you an example of what I did. So you can see this is actually not exactly on the same page, but prior, my syllabus had an accommodations box, and that's actually, it was just sort of a box. It wasn't a table. It wasn't helpful. It wasn't accessible. So instead, I put the header, and you can, if you scroll down toward the bottom on the right, you'll see that I put accessibility and services. I also included a link to the Disabilities Support Center. And for the textbook, I gave them the textbook as a link to the bookstore, so they can just click on the link and it'll take them right to the bookstore where the book is being sold. That way, it just kind of reduces that extra step. And they're more, you know, I think they're probably more inclined and they find it easier to access the book. So whenever I could in my syllabus, I tried to provide links. Can't always do that for everything, but I think it can help students, you know, get to more places a little bit faster. No problem, and thank you all for the questions and comments in the chat. So that's kind of what I did with links. So I wanted to give you all time to practice, and unfortunately we started a little bit late and things went a little over, but what I'm gonna do is kind of share my last slide and then open it up for questions or sharing or any successes, anything that y'all wanna share. I did want to share a quote that I found. Once we have accessibility, we have possibility. I challenge you to move from making accommodations to making learning accessible to all. And this was by Mark Coppin. He's the Director of Disability Services at North Dakota State University. And I really like that because I think a lot of times we think in terms of accommodations, specific situations, which we should be mindful of. But if we can create our course in a way that's already accessible in the beginning to everyone, then we're really opening up more possibilities for our students. And it's actually my hope that at PGCC we have a way and a place and a resource for us all to kind of share ways that we can make our courses more accessible, because we're in this online learning environment, and you know, we don't always know what's going on behind the screen with the students. They won't always disclose, you know, their challenges. So I think it's really important that we work toward this goal. Oh, I have until 2:55. Okay, great. Great. So what I like to do now is, if anybody's been working in Microsoft Word on your syllabus as we've been talking, or if you have questions or anything you want to share, this is your time to kind of bring it up, and I'll do my best. I can answer questions. We can help each other. Yeah, Cherry?
Yeah, I'm so impressed with the switch with the linking concepts, but I wanted to know, is this part of APA 7? They have links now into writing, or it's just, I don't know.
Not that you mean, is it part? I'm not familiar actually.
With writing formatting with APA.
Oh, APA. I'm sorry. Yeah, now I know what APA is. Sorry.
Yeah,
Yeah.
the 7th edition is out now, and it's integrating a lot of links like you're doing, watching my behavior, you know, to accommodate. I really enjoyed this. Thank you.
Sure, no problem. That's actually really helpful, and I might check it out now that you mentioned it.
Okay.
Yeah, no problem. Great. I'm glad this was helpful to you all, and I do have a list here of some resources. These are all links, and I've used some of these sort of in preparing for this presentation. So the Accessible Syllabus Project, I'll just mention that. That's a project, a website dedicated to basically making the syllabus more accessible. So there are a lot of ways, you know, people have done that, and they've, you know, it's basically like a joint project amongst several faculty members at different colleges. So I'd suggest taking a look there if you want to get started on making your course more accessible. Yeah, I think, I hope that more people do this, because like I said before, I don't want the syllabus to be this like, oh, this frustrating thing, you know, for faculty and students. And not only the syllabus, but we can do this in all of the documents that we create in our courses as well. Cherry, you wanted to know about fonts? Yeah, that's actually a good font. You said, it's Verdona, I think it is, right? Sans serif fonts, so fonts that don't have the serif, are better and more accessible if you're able to change the font. Even your syllabus 12-point or higher is helpful. Yeah, great point. Great point. Anybody have any questions, comments, anything they want to share as we wrap up? I'll stop sharing. Highlighting. Yeah, that's a great point, Lou. I've done it. And I think if there's enough contrast, like between the two colors, so if you're using, you know, black font, black text, and like a yellow highlight, I think it's okay. But I would have to check to see if that is a problem for screen readers. I don't know if they recognize highlighting. So I would suggest probably like default using the styles, you know, before trying to use bold or italics or underlining or highlighting. Yes, 12-point or higher if possible. That's basically what I've seen across the board for documents, websites, anything. Oh, and I'm going to type my email address in the chat for anybody who needs. I don't know, Deborah, if they'll share the PowerPoints or how that all works. But if anybody has any other questions, needs resources, you can definitely send me an email as well. Thank you all for coming today and participating. And I think that's it, right? Okay. Have a great day, everybody.
Thanks, Laura.
You're welcome. Thank you. Thanks for your help.
You're welcome.
Take care.
You too.